Hey, friends, welcome back to another episode of the Power of Nine podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert. Today's guest took something that was a hobby as a child to now a passion and thriving business that rides the line between science and art. We're going to unwind all that and more with my friend, Eggert Jenson. Eggert, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Aaron. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad I hit that cold open. I've been on a month hiatus from the podcast, so you're my first guest after taking a month off. So glad we got that out of the way. Yeah, awesome. And you and I both know about being able to nail that on the first time with your background and working together. So we'll dig into some of that stuff.
Hopefully that's a good sign for how this whole session is going to go here.
Yeah. For those that are listening, you got to check out the video. Eric's looking good. He's one of the few people that dresses up for look good, play good was what he said to me before the show started. And so rocking his sport coat, and I love it, man. Thank you for bringing it.
Yeah, well, we won't show what I'm wearing from the waist down, but feeling good from the waist up here.
Yeah, videographer's secrets. Yeah, I love it.
I think COVID exposed that whole secret. Let's not talk about that online.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, man. Well, before we get into things, please share with me the pronouns you'd like to for me to refer to you as.
Yeah, thanks. He, him.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we met, did we meet at a coffee and closers event? And then I think
that's where it'd be, good old Nikolai.
Yeah. Good. And that's back in the day when he used to do those live events and you used to record for him. And that inspired me to do some work with you. And we just kind of hit it off from there.
Yeah, it's amazing looking at how relationships form, where they start, what happens, what leads to what. And, everyone preaches this and you're the best at doing this, but, it's relationships are the ultimate as far as what matters, in life and business and everything. So thanks for fostering this like you have.
Thank you for being a part of it and for the kind words. Okay, well, let's dig into your journey here and let's talk about your upbringing. So you were brought up here in the Twin Cities, St. Anthony.
That's right.
Talk to me a little bit about your family dynamic.
Yeah, well, the mom at home, dad who worked 45 years at one place. He was at Honeywell. And growing up in St. Anthony, he was at that Northeast Minneapolis plant, by the Target and Highway 88 and all that stuff. So just 5 minutes away, he was coaching. He was the sports boosters commissioner, very involved and active in our lives. And we grew up that kind of typical Midwestern family. Baseball, football, basketball, year-round, couldn't afford hockey. And my mom took us in third grade. I was so excited because my mom took me to the Oval in Roseville to sign up for hockey. And when she saw what it was going to cost, she looked at me and said, "Eggert, you're playing basketball this year." Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Plus the time commitment. I think that, cost is one thing, but
right.
I think I know all my friends that have kids in hockey. I mean, the circle of influence that becomes their friends are the other parents that are the kids that are playing hockey because of the fact that you spend so much time doing it.
Man, it's and even today, it's a whole new world versus growing up playing sports when I grew up. I mean, you're expected to be a 3-sport athlete if you're an athlete. When I was growing up, now they're just specializing you at an early age. I mean, I got a daughter in gymnastics, and they're recognizing her as a 4-year-old and putting her into the the competitive group, and it's like jeepers.
Wow. Yeah, no kidding. You're bringing it. What was your family like for brothers and sisters and stuff like that?
Yeah, I've got an older sister and a younger brother, and we're all a year apart. So, very close. My brother and I, it was my sister and I until my brother came onto the scene. And then really he and I were just always paired off. And we were those brothers that, we did everything together. We were playing video games together. We were playing sports together. We eventually were making movies together, and we'll talk about that eventually. But, it was that brother dynamic where super competitive, everything turned into a fight, and then throwing fists, and the next minute we're back to best friends and doing the next thing together. And it was a fun childhood.
Did you
he's extreme. So my brother's an extreme athlete. Like he's the kind of athlete who's like picks up a golf club and he's the best golfer on a golf team. He was an all metro quarterback and recruited by some really good schools to play quarterback. There's a whole different side story there as to why he couldn't. He had some concussion problems that trace back to me knocking him off his bicycle, and he had a horrible bike crash without a helmet, and ended up not having a college football career that he otherwise maybe could have had. But
funny. Well, anyway, that's, I digress. Who knows, right? Like we always had a rule growing up. My brother and I were 5 years apart, and I think we didn't have like, this isn't a written rule, but we just wouldn't punch each other in the face. We could do anything.
Anyway, and 5 years, the other place, unless you were really mad, you didn't touch the other place either. But the face or the nuts. Can we say that on a podcast? I think we can. Yeah, you could.
Oh, you should hear some of the other stuff people say. Don't worry about it. That's the least of my concern. So the other thing that I thought was really interesting when we were doing our prep call is that your mom, although you said was a stay-at-home mom, but she was also the life of the party. So she was the Energizer Bunny in the family. So how much of that rubbed off on you?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question, because my mom, she was, my parents were both from Madison, Wisconsin, and Madison in their day, they had two high schools. It was East and West. And my mom was homecoming queen in a class of 600 something, people in her high school class. And, that's just who she is. She's the life of the party and more. My dad, on the other hand, he's that stereotypical engineer type who, got into Honeywell as an engineer, ended up being an operations manager. And he's that kind of person who he's an extroverted introvert, if you will. Like he likes being at parties and whatnot, but he's certainly far from the life of the party. And he's very analytical. He just has an engineer's mind. And so my mom, on the other hand, she's a singer. She's a great musician. There's the arts, there's all that. And so, as kids, we got a lot of both of that. The scientific analytical side, the engineering side from my dad, and the much loved monkey life of the party and the artist from my mom. And that really bleeds into a lot of what we do, like you kind of hinted at already.
Right. Yeah. The science and art thing. So when we talked about it, you alluded to it a little bit, but you and your brother started making movies. What age were you when you made your first movie together?
Oh man, as soon as our family got one of those shoulder mounted VHS video cameras, we were taking it away. I mean, we're the generation not far removed from you, Aaron, where, growing up watching Star Wars and Indiana Jones and Back to the Future and Karate Kid and et cetera. And you get inspired by epic stories and you want to start figuring out how to tell your own epic stories. And so, we were playing with it from the very beginning, as early as we got one, which I don't remember, 5th grade, maybe.
So you, how much of that then, as you started to get older, you really got into sports and frankly, I think you guys were good. And so you went to college for football. Now, as you became a college football player playing for Gustavus, did you still have that passion for film, and were you still doing things on the side while you were trying?
In fact, we were pretty good at football, but I never had like the dream, I'm going to play in the NFL. The dream was always, I'm going to make movies. And so I was the kid who was starting varsity in high school for my sophomore year on, and didn't have to touch the weights to get on the field, was playing both sides, was playing special teams when they needed me, kick returner, punt returner, and didn't touch weights at all in high school. And I was the only kid. And so, I mean, I never had Big Ten aspirations. Had I, then I would have been hitting the weight room. I would have been, trying to go that path and seeing if I could do it. But the dream was always to make movies. Now, Gustavus doesn't have a film department. It didn't even have like a TV and media department when I went there. But there was something in me that was really attracted to that liberal arts opportunity, and just knew that if I'm well-rounded and well-grounded, I should be able to figure this out and make a go at it if it's for me to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Was going to Gustavus a part of, because I know you and your family are pretty faith-based. Was it a part of your faith, a decision in going to that school?
Absolutely. And I mean, my faith as a Christian is the ultimate core of who I am. Everything starts there. And so that was absolutely appealing. In fact, when I was at Gustavus, so football was a love of mine. And so I, was recruited and got a great scholarship. Now, Gustavus doesn't do athletic scholarships, but somehow I got a really great academic scholarship. Gotcha. I had a really high ACT score. I went through like a phase as a sophomore in high school where I didn't apply myself at all. It's in really bad grades, which just pulled my GPA way down. But somehow I got this really great academic scholarship, which maybe traces at ACT, but in the back of my mind, I always wondered, is it athletic? Right. Because they'll sneak stuff in, right?
I'm sure. Well, every school does. Yeah.
So that was a fun passion, obviously playing football, and D3 was kind of the perfect opportunity where that wasn't going to be my life, but that was going to be a way that I can stay in the game. And it's still fun, still competitive, way more competitive than high school. And so that was awesome. But then at Gustavus, I ended up as a business management major, just because it seemed practical. Again, they didn't have any majors in the areas of, film, TV, et cetera, broadcast. And it just seemed like I'll be able to apply this wherever I go. Mm-hmm. But back to what you were asking about, Aaron, when you're asking about, the faith, for fun, I would take religion courses. And because to me, this is the core of who I am. I love learning about this stuff. I love reading this stuff. And when they're offering a course on Augustine and Thomas Aquinas and Erasmus and Martin Luther and Dietrich Bonhoeffer and Schleiermacher, I'm like, heck yeah, why not? Let's go do this. Yeah. And so that was fun for me, taking those religion courses. And then by the time I was a senior, I realized I'm just a senior thesis away from double majoring. So I ended up adding religion major as a double major, and I had to come back an extra semester for the senior thesis. But yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Did you ever think at any moment you were going to use that major in religion in the next step of your life?
Well, I didn't
for a job.
No, in the sense that this was just a fun passion of mine. Yeah. But what ended up happening is, as a religion major, like a lot of other majors that are maybe bend that way, whether religion or whether psychology or philosophy or et cetera, you do a lot of writing. Right. And, by the time you're in those upper level courses, you're doing at least a 10-page paper every week. And when I say at least 10 pages, you're doing a 10-page paper at least every week, maybe a couple of them. And that prepared me in ways that I just never could have imagined for where I am today with, just learning how to write concisely, learning how to formulate my thoughts and make an argument and et cetera, because that applies so directly to exactly what we do in telling stories for companies and trying to explain how a product works, why a customer should care, why this matters, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So what was your first gig out of college then so you graduated from Gustavus with a double major? What was the first thing you did?
Yeah. So what ended up happening is, I hinted at how my brother, he easily had Big Ten talent, but couldn't play that. He as a quarterback in high school, it was known that one hit, if you hit him in the head, even just kind of lightly, he'll be out the rest of the game. This is back, before we knew how serious these concussion issues were. Mm-hmm. And so after his first really bad concussion, my mom is, with him in the hospital, asking the doctor, can he play football again? Should he be playing football? The doctor looked at my brother and said, well, Scott, do you like football? He looked at the doctor, well, yeah, I love football. He's like, okay, then yeah, why don't you go ahead and play it?
Oh my God.
But one hit and he'd be blacked out not blacked out. He'd be having those Percy Harvin style migraines, he'd be in a room with all the lights off for 2 days recovering. And so, the Big Ten scouts just stayed away from him, but he was still being recruited by NDSU and St. Cloud State. And he tried at Gustavus, one hit in a practice, and then he was out for those 2 days. And he's like, nope, I'm done. But he also came to Gustavus. That's my long-winded way of saying he ended up at Gustavus.
Yeah, gotcha. All right.
Sorry, I can ramble. I can write concisely.
It's all good. I'll pull you in.
Off the cuff here.
It's all good.
So Scott, my brother, a year younger than me, we grew up together, and then we ended up going to college together. And we were doing films together in college. We were winning some film festivals, and doing short films, getting better at the craft of storytelling. And so right out of college, like I said, I ended up back there that extra semester. Then that spring semester, even though I was done with school, I was working for a professor at Gustavus who was, a guest professor taking a leave from Steppenwolf Theater in Chicago. And if you know Steppenwolf, that's like the top theater in Chicago. Gary Sinise, John Malkovich, Joan Allen, all these big names. And so this guy was this incredible actor who has film and TV experience, teaching at Gustavus because his wife went there. And so I was working for him. We actually did a short film together with him. And so I was at Gustavus through the duration of my brother's time at Gustavus, and we both ended up leaving Gustavus together. So we were very aspirational, and we started a business together. And we called it Dream Reel Productions. And our first client was in real estate. And we did this, $10,400 project, which to us just felt like ginormous money. I mean, just like after having a summer job working construction, which was, paid a decent amount per hour. But then before that, working as a custodian for the church, or, working for the city, just, cleaning up the parks, $10,000 just felt huge.
Right.
And we had, another friend helping us out. And you realize pretty quickly after splitting it 3 ways and then not having anything else for the next 3-4 months that maybe that's not as big of money as we thought it was. And that company that we started together, it didn't last very long because we had no idea what we were doing. We were just good storytellers, but we had no idea what we were doing. Right. And it wasn't shortly after that I got married, and it was time to get a 9-to-5. And so I quickly took a job at the Apple store just to get on a payroll while looking for another job. And at the Apple store, they started teaching me how to sell. And I was a Mac guy, Aaron, since before that was cool. Since the 90s when everyone thought Apple was going to die and Steve Jobs came back and, saved them. And so really passionate about Macs because they were the best for video. And so they always were. And so, and the creatives just loved them. And I was one of those guys. So I was really successful selling at the Apple store. I sold $750 of product per hour that I worked, which was more than double, the next person, because I knew about these. And this is before iPhone, where, that stuff sold itself. Was because I was passionate about these MacBooks and sold a lot of MacBooks.
Yeah. You're passionate.
But then went from there, and they couldn't give me again. This is all really quick progression, right? So went from the Apple store to temporarily at Target and retail before. Ended up selling mortgages with Wells Fargo Home Mortgage for a little while, and was having some success there. And that's where I was making a decent income before I finally went full time with Jenson Studios.
Yeah. And then, so let's talk about that. You started that out as just being pretty solopreneur, just trying to make it work. And then when was your paradigm shift that you wanted to take this from being like a one-man show to actually turn this into a scaling business?
Yeah. So, I mean, should I get into a little of the history of, I went full time with Jenson Studios because I had a project where I was making more on that project than I was in a year outside of Jenson Studios at Wells Fargo Home Mortgage. And so I thought, okay, now's the time. I'm gonna go at this. The problem was this was when the recession was just starting, and I ended up with almost nothing else after that project for like a long enough period of time where we had a couple cars repossessed. We had, lights turned off and, for a day, and and went through a lot of financial struggle at the same time that my wife is pregnant with the first baby. And, the repo man is literally coming for the vehicle for my wife's, that had already taken my vehicle and is coming for the wife's vehicle a week before she's due. And I'm sitting there praying, and then I go out and beg the guy, and he ends up, not taking the car, which never happens. And then we figured something out and kept moving forward. But that was hard, that was really hard. And ended up fighting my way through it and out of it. And through, a series of opportunities and projects, I did something with Dairy Queen, and I was able to sell, because that was a big enough brand. I was able to sell that to some other companies, and then started doing a lot of great work with some other companies. One of them, Stratasys, was a huge client for me for a number of years, and kind of had to pull myself out of all of this debt and this trouble that I'd gotten myself into. And I found myself having a measure of success as a solopreneur. It was making a very healthy, hearty living. But after kind of coasting at that level for a number of years, I paused, and I started looking at where I am and where I initially intended for this to go, and what I'm able to do, and what's holding me back, and realized that there's got to be some shifts and some changes, because how I was operating was taking a project and trying to just do everything myself so I didn't have expenses because in the back of my mind I was so scarred from having been hurt financially where I was before. I just wanted to hoard it, if you will. I wasn't thinking of it that way. Yeah. But of course that brought some limitations, and I'd get, for example, maybe a 6-figure project, and then find myself working that for the next 6 months and not selling anything, and would get more work for the rest of the year as soon as I was able to get back to it. But I'd go through this cycle of get a huge amount of work, then work that work, then be done with it, then sell, wait for the next project to come, right, get a huge amount of work that, et cetera, et cetera. And so that became this repetitive cycle. And so really it was a few years ago that I took a step back and started thinking about, I need to figure this out. I didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial family. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew that it's possible. There's a way to grow this into an actual business. And so we've got to do this, beyond being the solopreneur. And so that's what we've been doing the last few years. And, frankly, the relationships that have come from being intentional about networking, about connecting with others have just been amazing. Coalition 9 has been amazing. And we're in just a radically different place today than we were even 3 years ago.
What is let's go into present state then with Jenson Studios. What does your team look like? And so let's start out there. How many people you have on your team, and what do they do?
All right. So, we've got a team of all-stars, except for somehow me, the B squad player. Seriously, like the team is incredible. We're a small team, but they consist of literally Academy Award winners, Emmy Award winners, a guy who worked on, the Star Trek movies, the more recent one, J.J. Abrams ones, and, a guy who spent 17 years shooting TV in LA, and another guy who came up way back in the 90s, a little bit older now, shooting Michael Jackson and Madonna music videos. That's sweet. And now we're adding a guy who, just a month ago was shooting a Kia, car commercial. So we're a team of 5 now and growing. We actually a team of 6 if we include, one of our editors that's contract work editor, but is, kind of solely working with us. Yep. So, yep, we're half of us in LA, half of us here and in the Twin Cities. And it's a fun time.
What is, this is your time to kind of pitch me on what you do. So what is it that you love to do? for your clients? What is the service you provide? And paint me a little bit of a picture there.
Yeah, well, I'll start generic because you asked, what do you love to do for your clients? And I mean, the best is when it's just a home run for everybody, when you're building a relationship and giving them success, because as a service provider, that's all that matters, is that you're adding value to them. And so when we can do that, when we can do an ad that is tracking and the analytics are looking great and it's leading to more click-throughs and brand awareness and all of that stuff, that's awesome. But what we do, Aaron, is we do creative video, and that's still very generic, but there's a broad swath of the types of videos that we do. We're moving more and more into the brand type stuff, actual ads, TV commercials, internet, lead gen commercials. We started out doing testimonials for the corporate world. And our bread and butter is still, much of this corporate video, product launches, overview videos. We work with a lot of well-funded startups, like a branch, for example, telling their story, explaining complex solutions is something that we're really good at, and making them simple so people can understand. Some of these SaaS platforms that have a really cool solution, but it's hard to explain in 30 seconds. That's something that we've gotten pretty good at. We're working right now with a startup called Evolve Additive Manufacturing, and they're very much in this tech science-based space where they've invented a whole new method of additive manufacturing that can actually do mass production, which is never been done before. And so that's a fun client. But then also the lifestyle brands, and we love telling stories. And every type of video is a different type of story, and ultimately they can be dissected and broken down to kind of very essential elements that have to be in each type of story, but then they're all going to have their own character, their own nuance, their own personality. And so we love playing with that art and science of video.
Yeah.
And storytelling.
Where do you see this going into the future, your business?
Yeah. We're growing in two ways, and that's adding more corporate clients, we can actually scale now that it's just not me, and we've worked with large corporations, here locally and across the country, and smaller corporations, mid-sized companies, and we're growing there. But where we're really pushing though is more ads. The goal is that we're actually going to shoot that Kia commercial, next year when they need another one, and we're going to be the ones sought out for some of this higher end brand stuff.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned, and you said it multiple times, storytelling, right? And that being able to connect. And I think that's something that you have a huge passion for. So trying to find more ways to be able to tell these stories of people that have stories to tell, right? I think,
and everyone does. And I mean, every company does, every person does. There's something compelling about each person's story, but you've got to find it. You've got to pull it out. You've got to tell it in a way that actually connects with an audience, where you can form that empathetic connection.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. One thing I want to get into before we start digging into 9 questions is, and I know this is something that you're passionate about, is talk to me about your nonprofit that you partner with, Magic Arms.
Thanks for asking. So back in 2012, Stratasys, again, a great client of mine, sent me off to a children's hospital just south of Philadelphia in Wilmington, Delaware, to capture a story. It was going to be a testimonial, a case study of how this children's hospital was using one of their 3D printers to radically impact this little girl's life. What was happening is there was this little girl, 4 years old at the time, who was born with this rare condition called arthrogryposis multiplex congenita, or AMC. And AMC prevents her from being able to lift her arms at all. They're just, hanging at her side. And the hospital, the children's hospital, had used the 3D printer to create this exoskeleton device that counterbalances the weight of her arms against gravity. And so when she wears this exoskeleton, she can hug her mom, she can, color, she can play with the other kids in preschool and kindergarten and et cetera. And her life is radically different. And the little girl called the device her magic arms. And what happened is this video that we created, I interviewed the mom, interviewed, the researchers in the lab who were creating this device, and created this testimonial that was unlike anything else we were doing for Stratasys, because they were sending me out to NASA, which was really cool. They were sending me out to, to talk about how it's being used in automotive and aerospace and et cetera. But this is an example where it's not just helping industry, it's radically transforming someone's life. And you watch this story and a lot of people cry. It's just, you connect. And Stratasys did a great job of putting a lot of budget behind it, and a lot of PR initiative behind this story. And it went viral. And, publications from all over the world and all, layers of media, not just the tech media, not just the medical media, but, Glamour magazine and Huffington Post and whatnot were reposting this video and talking about it. And what ended up happening is, because the video went all over the world, the parents and caregivers of other children with rare neuromuscular conditions, whether AMC or a small handful of others, were now seeing this video and were aware of this solution that was created in this research lab. And they were contacting the hospital or contacting Stratasys and asking, how do we get one of these devices for our kids? And the challenge was, the device was created in a research lab. There's no distribution method. There's no way to, kind of mass produce this thing and get it off to kids. So they were just turning them down. And it just so happened one of my early clients became a friend of mine, and he runs a medical device design and development firm. And I was talking to him about this, and together we started this nonprofit called Magic Arms for the World to figure out how to get this device to more kids who needed them around the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you, where are you at in the growth of that nonprofit?
Yeah. So we started that nonprofit in 2014, and by 2015, we had raised funds. I went through some programs like Innovate, this great program at Colonial Church in Edina, if you've heard of that. Got some funds to hire an executive director. And that was exciting because now we could actually, do more than just what Tom and I could do on the side as a passion project. And we built up a board, and our executive director was doing it. We got almost a couple hundred kids, 100-something kids fitted. Meanwhile, we were iterating on the device. It was a great device, but it wasn't perfect. What ended up happening is one of our board members was a father of a child with AMC, and he's a venture capitalist. And our executive director, her neighbor and a good friend was a venture capitalist. And she runs in that world of, networking with these people. And opportunity came where there was interest in having us spin off from our nonprofit, Magic Arms for the World, a for-profit company, using the technology as a basis to build something that would be much improved, and a really high-end version of this device that would solve a lot of problems that the current version wasn't solving and could be commercially viable. Now, where there was opportunity was that the device that this for-profit was able to create would also fit adults. There's not money to be made helping kids because there's just not enough of them that are sick. But the same technology can be used to help adults who have MS, ALS, spinal cord injury, stroke, any number of conditions that would cause them to lose strength or ability to lift their arms like they should. And so our executive, we had to jump through, it was a complicated process, allowing our executive director, who was working for a nonprofit, to take the IP of the nonprofit and start a for-profit And then, hopefully if it's successful, she'll be, very much rewarded financially for its success. And there's a gray area with how do you do that? So we had to navigate that with the Attorney General of Minnesota. And the for-profit that she started is Abilitech. And if anyone's heard of Abilitech, well, they won the Minnesota Cup recently, and they're crushing it. They're doing a great job. They, as far as I know, I keep up with them to the best that I can. And as far as I know, they've got a polished version of the device that they're selling right now. And part of the agreement and the ability for us to allow Abilitech to take the IP, which, was very basic at the time, but still was the nonprofit's IP, was Abilitech is going to have a revenue share agreement with, or does have a revenue share agreement with the nonprofit. And so, and the nonprofit gets a small amount of equity in Abilitech. So Abilitech's success will be, to a certain extent, Magic Arm's success. And so now we have an opportunity to work together. And so when our executive director left Magic Arms to start Abilitech, all operations paused just because Tom is the friend of mine who started it. We weren't in a position to try and kickstart this all up over again. And the executive director was now founder of a startup. And of course, she's got to be 100% focused on what she's doing at the startup. So we're now at a point, though, with Magic Arms where we're ready to restart operations, and we can do some really cool things, helping Abilitech get their device to people who need it. And if there's still a place for this very low cost 3D printed version of the device, which we think there is, we can get that to people who would fall outside the cracks of being able to get the Abilitech version. The Abilitech version's incredible, but also it's going to be obviously significantly pricier than what a 3D printed version would be.
Yeah. You know what I love about doing this podcast? First of all, your passion for both filmmaking, storytelling, and then now, that's one thing that I thought was awesome about you. But then you tell that story, and that I guarantee people that know you don't even know that story. Like, so many people don't know that story. And you as just in your daily life, probably it just is something that is a part of you. But this is a great opportunity for you to tell that, because that is so cool that you're doing that and you're firing that back up. I have just a whole nother level of pride in being your friend, that you're doing something like that and spending time growing both this nonprofit and scaling your business. I just needed to say that.
Thank you. I mean, frankly, it's the kind of thing, Aaron, where like, it feels like when you talk about it, you don't want it to be like this thing that somehow, am I using it to prop up me or Jenson Studios or whatever, because that's not what it's about. And so then you feel gross talking about it, and then you don't talk about it. And then, that's why people don't know.
It's just part of your journey, man. I love it. I'm so glad that you were able to tell that story and also tell your journey. That is something that makes you, and your future is super bright. And I'm so thankful to, again, call you my friend. I'm in a hard transition into 9 questions. You and I could sit and rant all day about the things that you've done and business, and I could cheer you on forever, but I try and keep this thing to 55 minutes. So can you confirm to me that you have no idea what I'm about to ask you?
No idea.
Are you
this
nervous?
Is where everyone should just turn off the podcast, because this is where it just gets, really weird and awkward and lousy and rambly behind my end.
The wheels fall off. I'll keep you on track. Don't worry. All right. First question. What is your favorite hobby outside of shooting videos?
Oh, man. Aaron, there's so many things that I wish I had time to do that I just don't have time to do. I love sports. I love competition. I like staying active, and I like, climbing mountains when I can. I like doing all that stuff. And I, like Skylar was saying previously, just as long as he's moving, he's good. And that's me to an extent, but I especially love competition. I especially love playing in a softball league, playing in a flag football league. And I don't have the time these days. I also love fishing, but you got to be out on the lake all day to fish. And I don't have the time these days. I've got 4 kids. I've got work responsibilities and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I can get outside and I can be active, man, I'm in my element.
I love it. All right, good. All right. Do me a favor. Close your eyes.
Okay.
What is your favorite sound?
You know, when you said that without thinking, what came to mind, or what I heard in my mind, was the initial blast of the Star Wars theme song.
Oh, I love it.
That's what I
love
heard.
it.
That's what I heard. I literally heard that in my mind when you asked that question.
I love everything about what you just did all together. That's a great answer in a lot of different ways. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Oh man. 3 words. I am Minnesotan. What that means is it's hard to talk about myself. It's hard to talk about myself.
Yeah. That's funny.
A goofball? Depends on the context. A nervous Nelly?
Yeah. I have a buddy that he was interviewing for a job, and they asked him, describe yourself in 3 words. And his answer was, I love food. So I'd rather have you say I am Minnesotan than I love food, but whatever whatever works for anybody. Where do you come up with your best ideas?
I wish there was a magic formula, but if I can get to a quiet place and just really focus, I have to, like a lot of people, they start their day, with, whatever their method is. For me, that's prayer and scripture. Mm-hmm. And if I can start my day that way, then that's going to be a good idea day generally.
Yeah, good.
But
good.
If I can get to a quiet place, be focused, and not tired, which is sometimes hard to do when you have 4 kids and et cetera, then the ideas can flow. But there's a process too that I've found, and I don't want to get into that process for the sake of time, but the creative process, there's certain steps you can take to start to get into a creative flow.
Yeah. You and I talked about brain trusting. Is that what you're alluding to?
Yes, that's part of it. That's one of the processes, depending on where you are in a project. Yep.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right.
So for those who don't know brain trusting, just read the book Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull. And it's pretty awesome.
I was going to say, you mentioned that, and I put it in my Audible queue. So that's on my list. It's a long listen though. So I got to dedicate some time. It's a 13-hour listen. Yeah. I'm going to listen to that one at 1.4. I can promise you that. All right. If you could be any color in the big 152 Crayola crayon color case, what color would you be?
Well, the answer is blue. And it dates back to, again, I've got a brother. We were ultra competitive, but we were ultra close. And way back in the day, do you remember on the NES, that game Contra?
I do, yeah.
I don't know if you're an NES guy. We got best Christmas present ever. My mom had no idea what she was doing when she got us that thing. She bought us a Nintendo Entertainment System for Christmas 1987. And yeah, that Contra code, up, down, left, right, BA, select, start for us. A lot of people just start, but for us, select, start, because we're 2 players. So you go from 1 to 2. And I was always the blue guy. My brother's always the red guy. So it was always our colors throughout life. I was blue, he was red.
What a great answer. I love everything about that. What quote do you always refer to?
For me, it is scripture. And the one that's been, it's a long Bible. There's a whole lot in there that I love, and I read it every day. But one that's been just really significant since COVID is where Paul writes, "In all things give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning us." And with everything that we went through with COVID, it's an exciting time in business right now, exciting time in life right now, but it wasn't, even just for us a year and a half ago. COVID was really tough because all of our business paused. And that stoppage just made you stop and think and reflect on what actually matters in life. The isolation for us was a good thing. For some families was a hard thing. And coming out of this, like, things are booming now, things are awesome now, and yet I just can't. I'm actually getting a little choked up thinking about it, because there's stuff we went through with a baby and et cetera. The baby came, almost died, but didn't, and et cetera, et cetera. And so just very thankful.
Yeah.
Can't believe I'm getting choked up on a podcast that people are going to actually listen to, but
that's okay.
Very thankful. And all things give thanks.
And that's what this is all about. And it's that time of year too, with we're recording this a couple of days before Thanksgiving. And so, I look at Thanksgiving as being a holiday to truly give thanks for the people that you care about and what has been given to you in your life. I'm not as big on the whole pilgrims thing myself. So I do have such a high level of appreciation for that quote and that scripture piece. Thank you for sharing that. And thanks for sharing your perspective on that as well. All right, a little lighter here. Who would play you in the docuseries about your life?
Man, that's a good one. A younger, but you know what? Not necessarily younger, because he's ageless. Someone like a Paul Rudd,
someone who's the sexiest man alive.
But well, maybe not him then, because that's where I was going. It's like, that's right. He's the sexiest man alive right now. Not the goofiest looking, but not necessarily Brad Pitt either.
That's all right.
Can be an everyman, can be, can fit in any situation. I suppose if I was a Marvel superhero, I never thought about this before. I suppose I'd be Ant-Man, because he's kind of the weirdest one.
There you go. I don't think he won sexiest man alive purely because of his looks. I think a little bit of his sense of humor and his personality.
Exactly. So I don't have that. I can't think of a great answer because, I'm not exactly a Galifianakis, but I'm not exactly a Captain America or, what are some of Brad Pitt's epic characters as well.
Or something like that. Yeah. Well, Paul Rudd is a great answer. So I'll take it. What piece of technology will change the world?
I hope not augmented reality.
Yeah.
I hope that the whole metaverse is not where we're all going. Because man, it's good and bad enough as it is right now with our phones. But yeah, I mean, AR and VR is, as a storyteller, I mean, it's pretty easy to imagine how that immersive experience can radically change how we interact with each other and interact with the virtual world and et cetera. But it also scares me. It also scares me.
Me too. Yeah. The commercials scare me for Meta as well. Right. All right. Who is your mentor? They're weird. Who is your mentor and why?
There's different ones that stand out for different phases in life. And so I'm going to go with the most vanilla answer there, but also, it's true because he was there from the beginning, and that's going to be my dad. He's nothing steady
about that.
He's a hard worker, super reliable, just a whole lot of character that you can appreciate and learn from and try and replicate. It was just, like I said, very active and involved in our lives, and we were the better for it.
Yeah. Great answer. See, man, that wasn't that hard. That was 9 questions. We banged through that. And you were like Johnny on the spot. Good job. Yeah. Well, you
a little sip of kombucha after that.
Yeah. Nice job. Nice job. You earned it. All right. Let's share where people can find you. Where are you? Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Oh man. And this is, you told me to be prepared for this. I have a LinkedIn profile. You can find me on my LinkedIn profile. I'm pretty sure. How do they do their profiles? I forgot to look that up, Aaron. But my name is Eggert Jenson. It's spelled EricJenson. And I'm the Eggert Jenson that you'll see connected to Jenson Studios and Magic Arms and that kind of stuff. My email is eric@jensonstudios.com. And our company's website is jensonstudios.com. You could find me in those places.
So what I'll do is I'll make sure that there's links to Magic Arms, to Jenson Studios, to your email address, and then your LinkedIn profile within the show notes. So people that are listening to this on their podcast of choice, then I'm going to make sure we create some hot links for that. All right.
Thank you. You're covering me in my folly.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I got your back. Dude, I got to tell you, man, this was such a great conversation because I love it when I'm able to learn new things. And you talk about stuff today that we didn't even talk about during our prep call, which was fantastic. And so that to me just means that there's so much to learn about you. And I'm going to challenge people that if they have any desire to learn more about videography, filmmaking, or storytelling, or obviously on the Magic Arm side of things, and how they can help with getting that nonprofit back up off the ground, please connect with Eggert Jenson and get to know him a little bit. You're just scratching the surface by listening to this podcast.
Well, thanks so much, Aaron. You're incredible. What you've built is incredible. And I'm speaking of thankfulness and gratefulness, just so thankful for you and who you are and what you do.
Thanks, man. I'm honored to have you part of the community, brother. On behalf of Eggert Jenson, this has been the Power of Nine podcast. I am your host, Aaron Eggert, and I want to thank you for the privilege of your time. Cheers.